out loud. I don't know what kind of view you're going to end up with, or if this is even going to sound any better than it would without the headphones. But I was going to do this whole thing where I'd find the biggest tree on the property and do like a pretty scene, but I want to at least get this out while it's happening in my brain. I'm not going to make some assertion about a tree based on its size. I don't know. What's in a mother? What makes a mother? And I'm going to use people as an example, and then I'm going to talk about trees, because there's this idea of a mother tree. I think just really echoes and underlines and points out a different way of looking at the same thing when we talk about a human mother or a relationship with our mothers. So what's in a mother? And of course, you know, they grow the seed, you know, they develop, their genetics have, their bodies have an innate wisdom which knows how to produce a fetus that turns into a person. And when that person is born into this world, I think people don't, we know this, but we don't know it. And we're just now starting to scratch the surface in medicine and biomedicine, which is just medicine. As far as microbiomes within the human like GI tract especially. So, you know, and there's a lot of goods and services produced or targeted at people or at this microbiome within the gut especially. So, I mean, there's this awareness in our consciousness that is growing that says we need to have and we need to support a healthy kind or a healthy balance of bacteria, specific bacteria in the gut, in order to really max out our health. And I mean, that's a rabbit hole that is just, I mean, that's Alice in Wonderland right there, is the gut biome. But from learning about the gut biome, we learned that we also have a biome on our skin. We have we have colonies upon colonies of beneficial bacteria on our bodies, on our skin. I don't think they've made a probiotic skin regime yet, but they might. Regimen. We have these glorious galaxies and universes inside of our bodies that are made out of things that we can't see that are very much alive. And the same thing's going on the outside of our person, on our bodies. We have this biome. We can eat yogurt. We can eat things that have these live active cultures in them. We can slough off and wash our bodies to sort of get rid of any overgrowth or discourage overgrowth from occurring, or discourage any kind of competition that our good bacteria would come up against with like a bad bacteria overgrowth on our skin. Other than that, like, where does that come from? And our mothers, our first baptism into life, our first appearance into life is a baptism. And we're washed, we're covered, we breathe into our lungs with our first breaths, our mother's bacteria. When we're born, that baptism is an inoculation. And when we make that glorious O and we form suction onto our mother's body and we feed from her as infants, we're also, every time we're taking in nutrition, we are being inoculated with this bacteria, with this glorious bacteria that our mothers have been growing and supporting and producing for us their entire lives. And every time we eat, we're getting some of that. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much. So this bacterial kind of world is just fantastic. It's just fantastic. I mean, it's a rabbit hole that I definitely suggest jumping full on into. And it's not just a human body thing. So a fish tank has a glorious, very different, but very glorious bio network and, bioorganisms living in there, which make it possible for life. If we use bottled water, sterile bottled water, even if it's spring water and it has some mineral content in it, if we use sterile water in a sterile fish tank with sterile rocks, no bacteria, right? Bacteria is bad, we think. And we fill it full of this sterile water, and we put plants and living fish in it, and they start to die. It's because there's not a biome. The biome is necessary. And that's fish tank biome is another rabbit hole that I highly suggest dedicating your life to studying. So there's the water, that the primordial kind of goop that our lives came out of course. There's also our forests. And I think I'm going to take us out of the car because we've parked and it's good. So there's also the forests. Did you know that micronutrients as well as macronutrients can be transported throughout soil through these little networks of fungi? So they're little mycelium are these little, when you rip open the forest floor, you'll see kind of a cobwebby mess of stuff, and most of that's just it's kind of like roots. It looks like roots. It's a lot like roots. A lot of it is not visible. It's so tiny, and it's mycelium. And those little bastards all connect. So the entire forest is connected by these mycelial networks and these little tiny filaments, hair-like structures. And that's a fun rabbit hole, right? Fungi, mycelium. But that's not all. Wait, there's more. There's a microbiome of bacteria in soil. And that's why we have plants that don't like to be wet. Tomatoes don't like their feet being wet. They don't like a whole lot of heat, but what they really don't like is their feet being wet. Your tomatoes will do better when it's warm because it tends to dry them out a little bit, not because it's hot. So it's actually really important that we never let our fertile soil get completely bone dry because it's bad for that biome. And that microbiome of bacteria is also important in facilitating the life of the fungi and the mycelium, but it's directly important. It's directly related in transporting bacteria, nutrients, fungi, supporting life and fertility in the soil in the entire forest. And where mothers come into this is the exact same way or the same function as when we're suckling or as we're exiting the birth canal and we're getting covered in all those disgusting vaginal fluids. Our mother has been creating that network of bacteria, that universe, that galaxy of bacteria her entire life. And she got that from her mother. So when we talk about like COVID and how it mutates and we have to re-inoculate and all of this, and bacteria and viruses are different. Yes. But But bacteria do mutate and change and become resistant to things, kind of like viruses in a way. So the bacterial network that we're getting inoculated every time we latch on and feed is preparing us, is strengthening us for, I just got super cold. Preparing us for the things that we will face, and the wisdom of the body knows this because our mother has faced them, because our mother's going to be exposed to, usually, the mother's going to be exposed to a lot of the same stuff we're going to need the antibodies that she made against whatever version of polio maybe got on a floor tile in the local grocery store 3 weeks ago. Just weird shit, it's beautiful, complicated, weird. The mother trees in the forest aren't necessarily going to be the biggest. I guess I need to get inside. I'm freezing my ass off. What a luxury in this day and age. Freezing your ass off in July. These trees, these moms, these mother trees aren't necessarily going to be the biggest. It's not really how trees work necessarily. You have to know. You have to know more. So, it's not about just not cutting the big trees. These trees have been around the longest. They have humongous networks, and they have defenses, they have adaptations that have carried them thus far, have allowed them to stay alive the longest. Not necessarily get the biggest, sometimes, a lot of times, yeah, but not always. Woo! So what's in a mother? Bacteria. Thank you, Mama. I love you.